Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and discuss the articles and events of Scientology as published on his Substack in the last week. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Chris. Glad to be here.
Awesome as usual. And what an interesting week. You had some interesting stories drop, and there were a few I wanted to comment on, starting with I'm going to go with the big one first because it's the most, to me, it was the biggest, it left the biggest and lasting impression and was just chock-a-block full of details. And this was Valerie Haney's interview. You talked with her about Tom Cruise and recent events and stuff. What was this all about?
Yeah, let me just tell you the progression on that. So I had reported on the Baxter lawsuit, actually, where Scientology was bitching and moaning about this idea that the Valeska and the Baxters should get a quick appeal because their arbitration process takes so long. And so they're moaning about, oh, our arbitration is effective and efficient and quick. And I just thought that was ridiculous. So I called up Valerie and told him that they were saying that. She was like, unbelievable. So she gave me an update on her case. And I wrote about that these they're gaslighting her about her not, giving them an address and all that. We talked about that before.
Yep.
Well, as long as I had her on the phone, I also said, hey, by the way, Tom Cruise is coming back to theater. And what was different for me this time, last year, when Cruise was coming out with Top Gun Maverick, I did a big, long story in the Daily Beast about how, what Tom's history in the church was. And that was fun. But I was like, what's different this year? And I thought about it. And the difference this year with Mission Impossible coming out is all the stuff about Shelly now that Leah Remini and Yashar Ali have put in the public's faces. And I thought, this is a little bit different for Tom. So I asked Valerie, and I really hadn't before, could you tell me a little bit about Tom and in relation to that whole thing with Shelly? Well, I'm glad I asked because she had some amazing things to tell me. One of which, we all know about the audition thing, right? In 2004, Tom had told Dave, I'm having a hard time finding a new girlfriend. And so Dave put Shelly on the project of auditioning actresses without telling them that they were actually auditioning to become Tom's next partner.
That's right.
And that's how they ended up with Nazanin Boniadi dating Tom in November 2004. We know about that. Maureen North had this fantastic investigation in Vanity Fair 10 years ago about all that. But what Valerie told me I hadn't really thought about before is that she said that Shelly hated that assignment, that she thought it was ridiculous. She's like, what are we doing getting Tom a date? This is stupid. I just loved hearing that. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
And it kind of, she explained that it kind of emphasized how at that point in 2004, Shelly was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the way Dave's life revolved around Tom. And it became a wedge between them. And remember, it was just a few months later in the summer of 2005 that Shelly disappeared forever. And we know that Dave basically put her up in that mountain compound to just banished her, basically.
That's right.
And she's been there ever since for 18 years, Chris.
Yep.
So I just thought that was really interesting that Valerie filled in that little detail that Shelly really was uncomfortable with doing that project to find Tom a new girlfriend. And then the other thing she told me that kind of blew my mind was I mentioned to her that, I've talked to people who actually worked in Tom's household.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about how, with Nicole, with Katie, it was just like obsession. I mean, if you're going to be Tom's girlfriend or Tom's wife, you better be prepared because he's just going to be focused on you. He said, I got this description of Tom running around the house going, where's Nick? Where's Nick? Like it's just, he's just like, he's, boy, you better be prepared. So, okay. So he has a series of them, Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, Penelope Cruz, Katie Holmes. I mean, just a series of women and then nothing, Chris.
Right.
For the last 11 years. How is that possible? And these sources I've talked to say they're a little puzzled by that, because he's always got to have this real tight relationship in his life, and he hasn't. I mean, the tabloids are always telling us that, oh, he's dating this woman, he's dating that one, but they never seem very real, or I don't know. But I asked Valerie that. And remember, she's been out of Scientology for some years, but she was closer to these people than most.
Mm-hmm.
And her response was that Dave has asked Tom not to get into another deep relationship right now because he's so busy with all the problems in Scientology and the litigation and evading process servers. I hadn't thought of that. And again, this is Valerie's, judgment. She doesn't have evidence of this, but I thought that was a really interesting take, that Tom Cruise is not with another wife or girlfriend because Dave asked him not to.
Right.
That's wow. What do you think of that whole thing? And then I put it into a long piece because I wanted to put it in the whole context, because I know there's some people that if I just put in a couple of things, they'd be asking me about. So I tried to put it in the whole thing of the progression of Dave, Shelly, and Tom. So that's why it was so long.
Yeah, and full of details, and I very, very much appreciated it, because like others, when people come out, you want to, we always want to grill them for all the details, and Valerie's got them, right? And again, like you just said, she's someone who was inner circle. She was as close to the Miscaviges as you're going to get, and she was there for years, and so her observations actually do carry some weight. And I always try to incorporate all the information I get into the picture to try to, rather than go, oh no, there's just no way that's not, there's no way that's true. And my first thought was, oh, come on, there's no way that's true. And then I thought, no, come on, now hold on, right? It sounds, it's easy to doubt. And again, there's no evidence. But at the same time, when you look at Cruise and Miscavige, and not only their relationship, but the whole bromance, but how dedicated Cruise is as a Scientologist, right? Like dedicated, hardcore, as real as it gets as far as a believing Scientologist. I have no reason to doubt that, and every reason to think that.
Right.
Would he then concede to such a thing? Yeah, he probably would. Does that mean it absolutely happened? No, but would he do it? Yeah. And especially because it's in the area of what they call in Scientology the 2D. Second dynamic, sex, having to do with that, and relationships. And when you are told to put that on hold as a Sea Org member, nobody bats an eye. Really? Of course.
Wow.
Of course you're not going to have sex until you get married. And of course you want to find the right person. And of course. So there's already that thing in Scientology's culture. And who is the most honorary Sea Org member out there? Tom Cruise. So again, could it be? Absolutely. Of course it could. I wanted to comment also on the fact of the bromance, because it's been, people I've spoken with over the years have really talked about this, have indicated that this was a really serious thing, and could have been such a thing that it could have been partly responsible for knocking Scientology into the direction that it's gone now. Because if we're to believe that Miscavige is not just running a real estate scam, but this ideal org thing is for real, because he wants to bring Tom Cruise to any org, anytime, anywhere, and he can't do it in these shithole orgs they used to have, absolutely wasn't going to fly. So he literally changed the entire direction of Scientology for Tom Cruise.
Well, that's, I mean, Mike Rinder was the first one that told me that, and he didn't know if it was apocryphal or not, but that when the Ideal Org program started, it was because two orgs had to be replaced.
Yep.
The Buffalo org was being closed because of eminent domain. The city was grabbing it for a parking lot or something. And then the Tampa org really needed to be replaced. And Mike said what they were told was that Tom Cruise had taken a friend to the Tampa org, and then had gone to Mike, and then had gone to Dave and said, "Listen, that was kind of embarrassing for me. It's not a very nice place."
Yeah.
And so having to replace Buffalo, and then also wanting to impress Cruise, got Dave going on this whole Ideal Org program. That would have been 2002, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, he's been replacing them ever since. So again, Mike said we don't know for sure that happened or not, but that's what they were told, that Dave was embarrassed because Tom had gone to an org and it was shabby.
Exactly. And he was able to then, in his own mind, totally ignore all the Hubbard policies, and there are a few of them that say don't do what he's doing now. He was just able to kind of go, fuck those. Here's all these policies. Public knows us by our mest, for example, is a Scientology thing, right? They know us by how they see us. So you can take those kind of quotes and run with them, and that's exactly what Miscavige did in marketing this concept and bringing it to Scientologists. So so all this kind of indicates, again, kind of where Miscavige's head is at. And it's always kind of good to know where your guy's head's at, because it helps inform us what really motivates him. And Tom Cruise is at the top of that list of things that motivate David Miscavige. And Shelly was banished because she didn't like that. And isn't that interesting, you know?
I think it's that simple. I think, you know, she didn't like the direction it was going. She didn't like the attention Dave was showing to Tom, and he perceived her as disloyal, and that's it. See you later.
Exactly. Boom.
And then the people who say, why doesn't he just trot her out for a video to get all the heat off him? It's like, then you don't, that's not how Dave works. It's like he has made the decision that she is in the category along with Guillaume and Heber and these others, that they just don't exist to him anymore.
That's right.
And if he was to bring her out, he would be admitting that he was wrong. And he doesn't do that.
Ever. Will never, ever do that. Nor will he ever concede to his inner circle and the people around him whose opinions he absolutely counts on, right? That they're going to favor him and keep him in power. He's never going to admit a weakness to them. And that's exactly what that would be. It would be kowtowing to the squirrels and SPs like us.
Right.
You know, he's never going to do that.
No.
So that was quite an article, and I really want people to check that one out. The other one that was interesting was a little bit of news drop on out of Comic-Con, of all places, on Danny Masterson. What was this one?
Well, you know, Luke Thompson, by the way, told me he really liked the things you had to say, and that you know, Luke has written some really nice film reviews for me. Well, he's been going to Comic-Con in San Diego as long as I've known him, and he's just a fixture there. He always goes. So this year he went to Comic-Con, and there's I mean, it's a little side issue, but there's a bit of a controversy because of the strikes.
Yeah.
And so, for example, there was a panel that was supposed to be about that 70s show for its 25th anniversary. They're apparently having a 25th anniversary show, but the actors had to pull out at the last second because of the strike.
Yep.
However, because there was going to be that panel, the network, whatever, put together a display outside the exhibit hall, which, you know, they all do this, right? So you put up this nice display about that 70s show. And Luke was there and noticed that something was missing. And he looked again at the picture of the whole cast. No Danny Masterson. So I posted that real quick because I figured that would kind of go, you know, people would be pretty excited about that. One of my readers found the original picture that was from 2002. You can see where they just literally pulled Masterson out and then moved Topher and together on Photoshop. So yeah, I put that up, and I was hearing from all kinds of people. They thought that was, look, I mean, the guy's a convicted serial rapist. Of course you're gonna pull him out of your promotional materials, right?
Exactly. Of course they are. But isn't it funny how that parallels? I just had to make this, right? Of course, is how that parallels Scientology's treatment, one, of Hubbard's ex-wives, how they're totally disappeared out of all the pictures in the history. Sarah's just gone, and Polly just gone, right? The other one, of course, being that, hey, you're disappeared in Scientology because they treat their ex-members just like criminals.
Yeah.
They do. They talk about them like criminals. They think about them like criminals, and they act towards them as though they are criminals who have no rights, who have no valid opinion about anything, and can just be treated like complete trash. And that's how Scientologists justify all the bullshit, right? Is that. So Now Danny's getting a little taste of that medicine professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm going to laugh about that. Now, update on the JD lawsuit.
Right. So there's a new filing from Graham Barry. I always like to see some stuff from Graham Barry and the court file. And we got a couple of new developments about that new lawsuit. They're going to file a motion to consolidate it with the other Masterson victim lawsuit,
Okay.
the Bixler v. Scientology lawsuit.
Good.
Also, Graham has admitted they're already having problems serving David Miscavige, the lawsuit.
And Gavin, too, I understand.
And Gavin Potter. So just a quick reminder. So there's three, the three victims of Danny Masterson were part of the criminal trial. But even before the criminal case started, they filed a civil lawsuit with a fourth woman and one of their husbands. So there's 5 plaintiffs in the civil lawsuit, Bixler v. Scientology, which is not about the rapes themselves. It's about the harassment they say they've been under from Scientology and Danny Masterson. That civil lawsuit has been on hold during the criminal trials. And now they're waiting for the sentencing, which is scheduled for September 7th. In the meantime, Jane Doe 1 has filed her own lawsuit about what happened before Masterson, which is that when she was still a minor, she alleges she was assaulted by a Sea Org groomer named Gavin Potter.
Yep.
And that she was then presented with a choice. You're either going to go in the RPF and be a prisoner, or you're going to marry him. Incredible. And so
and I wish I could say that's the only time I saw something like that, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she alleges that she felt forced to marry the guy, and that any sex they had in their relationship was coerced. And so it's not a criminal case, but it's a civil case against this Gavin Potter and against David Miscavige. And it was filed very late last year, like the last week of December, but it was only unsealed last month. And at that point, they let the defendants know they're being sued. But like I said, Graham has indicated that they have not been able to serve Gavin Potter or David Miscavige. I have a feeling that you're going to find Gavin Potter on the free winds by now on international waters.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, of course, Miscavige is legendary for evading service. So that's going on. And then also, I thought it was interesting the way they're going to compute damages in that case. Graham indicated that they're basically going to add up all it has cost Jane Doe 1 since the 90s because she was victimized. I thought that was a really creative and interesting way to calculate damages against the Church of Scientology. So we'll be looking forward to future filing to see how much that adds up to. So that's the latest. The next hearing is next week. There's going to be a hearing in that. And I think that it will really only get going when the Bixler lawsuit also gets going after the sentencing.
Right, exactly. So maybe next year we'll start seeing activity on that, you think?
Maybe in September we'll
maybe later in this year?
Yeah, maybe in September we'll start seeing some interesting things. I mean, there's been no response at all to this new lawsuit. Of course, that's always very interesting when, Church of Scientology International and RTC and Bridge Publications, they've all been sued in this. It's always interesting to see how Scientology reacts. Like, are they going to try the arbitration thing? I have a feeling this one might be tough for them. I don't think, because of the age of the allegations, I'm not sure they had those contracts back then. So, interesting, a lot of interesting issues maybe coming up in this one.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be very interesting. I was just going to say on this one, having worked with Gavin Potter, I can tell you that it's easy to disappear these guys, especially when their job is tours registrar, tours salespeople, on the road salespeople, right? But like you said, probably even a better scenario is probably more realistic is that he's just on the free ones, and he's never coming home.
And I'm not pulling that out of thin air. I mean, in the earlier in the Masterson investigation, there were several people at the Celebrity Center that the LAPD wanted to talk to and who were suddenly unavailable. People who were fixtures at the Hollywood Celebrity Center suddenly weren't around. And I managed to get my hands on some texts from a family member reacting to the fact that this person that the LAPD wanted to talk to the family member saying, "Oh, they've been sent to the Freewinds for how many years?" I mean, it was just like, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah.
There it is. They said, "Okay, you're going to the Freewinds for the next 3 or 4 years. See you later." So I mean, actual evidence that that's what they're doing. So I would, every once in a while we get photos from tourists in Aruba. Keep those long lenses on the boat because you might see a skinny guy.
Yeah. I'm serious. I'm telling you. There were two places. There were two places when I was in Scientology that I saw people sent when they were disappeared. And we all knew what was going on. It was Australia and it was the Freewinds. It's
right.
not even a joke. It's like for
No.
real. We actually kind of knew because you didn't hear anything except that's where they were and that was it. And you knew you were never going to hear another word about them.
Yep.
That was true too. That's what ended up happening. Final article to comment on today is the write-up that Phil Jones did for you on Toronto. What was in there?
Yeah, Phil's contributed quite a few pieces, and in this case, he and Willie were just in the area, so they decided to take a look at this land Scientology bought for its advanced org. Now, see, ideal orgs is one thing because ideal orgs are at least replacing an existing facility. Okay, so you've got some drab place in Phoenix, so you spend several $1 million to get a nicer place to replace it. But the idea of an advanced org in Canada, he also announced an advanced org in Mexico. I mean, this is like Scientology grad school. I don't know how else to describe it. This is this special place where you have these really expensive upper level things people go to. And we know there's no demand for a new advanced org in Canada, but they bought a bunch of land and we haven't heard anything about it lately. So Phil went by just to take a look and told us some stories about it. So I thought that was great. But, why did that interest you in particular, Chris?
Well, it was only for a number of reasons. One, of course, being that I first was reading about, the Toronto Advanced Organization 10 years ago. I mean, it's just been nothing. It's just been kind of a nowhere project going literally nowhere, as is Scientology in Canada in general. There's just nothing really going on up there. And I find it, I've always found it to be kind of, it kind of exemplifies the real state of Scientology versus what you're going to see of Scientology as they present it to you through Scientology Media Productions and Golden Era Productions. They present this very shiny, they're events. It's all AV. It's all super digital animations and very state of the art. It's really high quality stuff. Even people in the industry are like, yeah, they do good AV. But that's all there is. It's just a veneer,
Yes, you're right.
And Canada is such a great place to look at how Scientology really does in the world without any bolstering or PR or any of that, because there's just nothing going on there.
No, nothing.
It's just sort of the the real versus the fake imagery of Scientology that is so modeled by that. So I thought that was a great article from Phil and some good observation from him.
Right on.
So this next week, as we've been sort of doing the last few shows, any preview or ideas on what's coming up?
Oh, I've got a couple of long-term projects that are just I'm working on them slowly, Chris. I'll get them out when I can get them out.
I understand. Well, speaking of long-term projects, let me say on my side, I was actually location scouting this last week because I'm doing.
I noticed that you put some photos on Facebook. Yeah.
So I'm out and about in Denver, finding places where I'm going to be shooting video. I've got 3 more locations I need to nail down and get some agreement on. Like, can I shoot inside a hospital for this couple shots?
Wow.
So I'm kind of doing a whole documentary style thing, not just this talking head video for this big project. So that's what's happening there, and I'm hoping to actually start shooting in, God, dare I say it, 2 weeks?
All right. All right.
Yeah, and that's going to be really, really good because this is going to be this is 5 years in the making. I've been over promising this forever, so it's really good that it's getting done. And there you go.
All right.
All right, Tony. Thanks as always. All folks out there, subscribe. Get his emails every day. The address is right there, the Substack. And subscribe to this channel, support Tony, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.